Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Gravity Fight Night. My name is Fear Dragon, and I'm joined here today with Shadow. How you doing today, Shadow?
I'm doing great. I just had a nice big plate of spaghetti. Feeling good.
You were having spaghetti, and I was reading chat, man, because we have some exciting news today. We're gonna have the Team Gravity Fight Night tonight, and we have some awesome players today, Shadow. We're gonna have actually, I believe, Masan facing off against Fiasco, but that's gonna be a little bit later on. In fact, before that, we're gonna be watching some of the preliminary show matches, which is gonna be Rake from Team Gravity, gonna be facing off against TtSEED Intense. So that's just going to be a really awesome Protoss versus Terran, and I'm pretty excited to jump into this. But I mean, Shadow, give me your thoughts about Gravity Fight Night, and what do you think is the series going to be like? I mean, we have a Protoss and a Terran going up for the first round.
We do. I wanted to mention, if people aren't sure, TtSEED is Root's Academy
Mm-hmm.
clan. So they're actually associated with Root. So these are actually very strong players. Even though they're in TtSEED, they're still extremely strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely fantastic players. And TtSEED is a very, very new team that actually just got formed. So we're gonna have to wait and see what they're actually made of. And I do want to actually note that Intense actually a very, very young 15-year-old Terran player, and to be able to play at a GM level as a 15-year-old, that's pretty impressive, man. I wish I could play at a GM level as a 15-year-old.
All you need is time, right?
All you need is some time. That's true. But of course, also Rake going to be a very, very strong Protoss Grandmaster level player as well. He's been playing StarCraft for about 2 years. Is actually very, very similar to. If we actually start to talk a little bit more about the detail of these players, I mean, Rake is often compared to being sort of similar in the terms of playstyle to SK Telecom One's Rain. He's a super defensive and really, really solid late game player. And what do you think about Intense?
Well, I know from the tail of the tape that
Hmm.
Intense is also a macro player. He's really good at multitasking, which is going to be important if you're going to deal with Protoss, especially a strong macro Protoss. And he's got
Hmm.
a versatile playstyle, which is it's going to be very important. He needs to be able to sense when there's weakness on Rake's side so that he can pounce on it.
Yeah, would you say that it'd be fair to make the assumption that this is literally going to come down to whether or not Intense's multitasking abilities is going to be better than Rake's defensive abilities?
I well, yeah, I mean, because that's basically how you dismantle a Protoss if you're not going to do an SCV pull. Is you have to take him apart piece by piece by piece.
All right, well, we'll have to see exactly what the strategies are as we jump in and actually introduce the players. And we're going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner of Akalon Waste, the very first map. On top of the red Protoss player representing Team Gravity is going to be
Game
Gravity's
paused.
pause game.
Hey, what are you all ragging on
Oh,
my
man.
table manners? You didn't even see me eat.
Oh, gotta love the chat, man. Gotta love the chat. But looks like the pause has been sorted out, so we're gonna go ahead and start that introduction over. It's down here in the bottom right-hand corner, representing Team Gravity and gonna be shooting for the first winner of the entire series is gonna be Team Gravity's Rake.
Indeed, and in the top left corner, representing TtSEED, Roots Academy clan, it is Intense.
And I'm hoping for an intense match over here, Shadow. So Protoss versus Terran. Whoa, wait. Is it Shadow? Do
What?
SCVs normally have to scout this early in that path?
No, of course not. Especially on 11, that is definitely going to be a proxy racks, as you can see.
And what a way to kick off the series. I mean, way to instill the fear of death into your opponent by just starting it off with a little bit of cheese. I really like that decision. But, I mean, let's talk about what exactly is Rake going to have to do to actually defend against something like this.
He's going to need to scout it. And he is going
Ooh.
gateway first, so he does have the opportunity to get units out.
Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't start pumping units out immediately, which generally you're not going to do, then he's going to have a serious problem if those barracks just or those units just show up in his base and he's got nothing to deal with it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried, but the nice thing is that Rake is going to be coming over into this base of the Terran player. He's going to say, okay, there are your SCVs. Where's your barracks? Where's your
Exactly.
barracks? Does a Protoss player ever just think like maybe it's a command center first play?
No, 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 no. If there's no barracks at all at this point in the game, he knows something's up. You'll notice how he keeps rescouting and rescouting and rescouting, and Intense wants nothing to do with that probe.
Well, I mean, he might just be thinking that for a CV is going to be helping just try and build that command
Well,
center.
yeah,
But
and
no,
down
that's
here
not
at the
the
bottom,
case.
we already have the bunker going up for Intense.
Yeah, and actually the pros managed to get a cancel on it even before the Zealot managed to pop out. So that's going to be a huge win right now for Team Gravity. But, I mean, there's going to be a building number of SCVs that are getting pulled across the map. Is he going to be able to defend this? I don't know. He's going after one of those SCVs, managed to pick one off. And honestly, he hasn't lost anything yet.
No, he hasn't. I'm
Just
actually
losing-
kind of surprised. No, he definitely Intense needs to try and get another bunker up, which he is going to do. And if he's able to get this bunker up, it's going to be extremely hard to repel him.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it's not even going to be in range of the gateway. And actually, the bunker
Nope.
gets canceled. The SCVs dancing in over there and going to be going after some of those Marines. And honestly, the more time that Rake actually buys, the closer he's going to be to things like Photon Overcharge and getting out that first Stalker, which can kite these Marines day in and day out.
It can. Now, if we take a look, oh, wow. Okay, so Intense is completely all in at this point now. He's going do or die.
Oh man, this is going to be really, really rough for Intense. He cannot make this happen right now, as it looks like that Stalker going to be doing a lot of damage to these Marines, and with a little bit of good micro, he has to make sure he's microing. He can also pick away at these Marines and make it even more and more difficult to even try and move up the ramp eventually.
Yeah, but his economy is shut down now, and he didn't really accomplish anything with the first SCV pull. So let's see if the second round of SCVs... He needs to get them in front, though. He doesn't really want them behind the Marines.
Yeah, this is do or die moment here, folks, as we end up seeing the Stalkers trying to kite back right now. The Mothership Core has enough energy for a Photon Overcharge. It goes down, and that is going to buy even more time, as it looks like Intense doesn't want to commit. GG gets called, and Team Gravity takes game number 1 very, very quickly.
And it basically came down to a good scout from Rake, seeing what was coming, and if he was fortunate that he had Gateway first anyways, and he wasn't aggressive with putting down his second Nexus, and he was able to just slowly build up his army size until he was able to whittle Intense attack away, and finally, when Intense did his second SCV pull, he made it an all-in. Like, he was committed to it totally. Like, he had no chance to pull out of it if he didn't win, and he didn't win from the push. So it was game over.
Yeah, would you have liked to have seen him just try and transition out and maybe turn it into some kind of
I think he could have. Yeah, I think he had enough SCVs in his base that he could have probably at least tried to play the game out a little bit.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
he was doing a great job disrupting the mining of Rake. For a significant amount of time, so he wasn't really that far behind. But going all in, it was do or die at that point. I don't think he realized how much economic damage he was causing by the initial harassment.
Yeah, a little bit unfortunate. I mean, he was down in workers, but he obviously had the mules, and I can see him maybe like, and since he wasn't able to get the bunker up on the high ground, maybe get one on the low ground, turn it into a containment, and throw it on your natural command center, and then hey, you're gonna have double SCV production. What does it matter if your opponent had 150 probes? It doesn't matter if they're on one base, right?
Yeah, and what's more, even though the probe count was higher, it was most of the time the probes were defending as opposed to mining. So he really wasn't that far ahead, the Protoss.
Yeah, but with that being said, it looks like we have our next map choice. And I do actually want to note really quickly that both of these players did get to ban one map before we actually started the series. Of course, it's a best of 5. And we have the entire map pool of everything from the ladder, but we've also thrown in Guangali Beach and Fruitland. And Shadow, do you want to tell everybody the wonderful, wonderful thing about Fruitland?
Well, if you haven't seen Fruitland yet, there's actually lemons. Well, okay, the whole map has got fruit all over the place first.
Yeah.
Like even the gas areas have like these big lemons attached to them. But if you go to the middle of the map, the destructible rocks, quote unquote, are actually lemons. And if you destroy them, then they leave little lemon slices, and the lemon slices are worth 500 minerals each. So there's actually some opportunity for map-specific strategy on Fruitland.
And, you know, it's actually really funny. I've actually heard the Fruitland creators say that they thought it was a little bit Terran favored, but we're gonna have to wait and see whether or not Intense will ever pick that map because his map choice has actually been Whirlwind. And for Protoss versus Terran, what do you think about this map?
For Protoss versus Terran, well, this is a great map to do a macro style play. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, they're not cross spawn though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's go ahead and introduce the players and we talk a little bit more about the map as we spawn down here in the bottom right-hand corner on top of the red Protoss player, currently leading the series up 1-0. It is Team Gravity's Rake.
Indeed, and in the top right, once again, representing TtSEED, the little sprout of root, it is Intense.
And I mean, Intense has got to grow some wings right now, man, because he needs to do something to come back from this series. I like the idea that he was willing to go for a cheese so early on, but now he's down a game, and that's like not a good mental place to be as you start off a series. Like within what 7 minutes.
I agree. However, this is a show match, and I don't think it's going to hit him quite as hard. Now, also, it's something I might want to point out, and maybe this is a little controversial, but somebody that young might depend on the occasional cheese a little more than somebody who's been playing a little bit longer or is a little more conservative. You know what I'm saying? So he needed that. He needed to try and get a win that way, and he wasn't able to. So now he's going to try and fall back on his standard play, and we'll see if he can actually compete with Rake one-on-one. So kind of a backtrack there for me.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty intense thing to say, and we'll wait and see because it looks like Intense wants to go for a command center first play. So I mean, Shadow, we're gonna find out whether or not his macro is up to snuff. But again, as we were saying during the the kind of player card introductions, we were saying that hey, Intense is much better with his multitasking and kind of his late game macro play. So we'll see if it's good enough to outdo Rake, who's, known for his drop defense. And honestly, what do you think about Whirlwind in terms of drops?
It depends on where you spawn. Obviously, if it's cross spawn, it's going to be kind of hard to pull off a drop because you have such a big flight path. But there is some opportunity for drops because you have the big expanse in between, basically where the third is and the main. The little island that you can come in and sneak in. Now, most players nowadays have become wise to that, and they build structures up there at the tip of their base to see the drop coming in. But if their army isn't there to deal with it, then it can still be a problem, even though they see it coming.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing to bring up, and I'm curious exactly how Rake is going to try and deal with that, or maybe if he'll even just kind of do things like try and go for some kind of big 2-base push and not really even bother going for 3 bases where it might become a little bit more difficult to defend. But I mean, none of that's actually going to matter until these two players scout each other out. So, in this kind of situation where both players haven't really seen what the other one is up to, what would you like to see from these players?
Well, already we're starting to see a little bit of an aggressive stance here from Intense, putting down the 2 barracks. Which, he's saying, I want to build some freaking Marines and maybe put some pressure on you. So I think that's what's going to happen from him. As far as Rake, he looks like he's just going eco right now.
And
so I would imagine he's probably just going to build up, get a good Colossi army, transition to high temps eventually.
Oh, well, I mean, it looks like Rake is just going to be doing something a little bit unorthodox, going for a Stargate right now. And is that for some kind of like Phoenix play or
no, not necessarily. The Stargate is starting to become part of the meta with Protoss. Anyways, that early Stargate. Now, granted, where he stuck it is a little cheeky, but a lot of times you're seeing a Stargate first, and they'll make an Oracle or whatever and just go out there, poke around a little bit, but it's not considered an all-in or a cheese anymore. It's just considered part of their play.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I also really like the idea of the Stargate because, especially on a map where it can be difficult to maybe jump between your third expansion, your natural, or your main base, versus drops, a Phoenix just shuts down drops because you will almost always get the medevac as long as those units don't unload and kill off your Phoenix.
Yeah, indeed. And another thing we might be seeing here is he might want to be. Yeah, okay, so he is making multiple Phoenix. Another thing he possibly is doing is anticipating the Vikings coming out eventually. And he's going to want to have those Phoenix to be able to deal with the Vikings when he goes Colossi.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is another interesting variation that we're starting to see in PvT.
Yeah, and this kind of got popularized by some of the Chinese players like Jim. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so playing with a little bit of a newer age style, at least over here in the foreign community, in the foreign scene. So we'll have to wait and see how well this works out. And I like that Rake is just kind of pooling these Phoenix. Is he just kind of hiding them right now, or do you think that he's preparing for some sort of drop play that could be coming in sometime in the next couple of minutes?
Well, I don't... I mean, yeah, they're ideally positioned for a drop, but I'm not really sure yet what his plan is. I mean, the Robo's facility is about to finish. I'll be interested to see if he goes straight into the bay or if he attacks first.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing where it's like you used to hear about Protoss versus Zerg builds where you go for Phoenix or Stargate units early on to force out Hydralisk, and then
here
you
the
go
Phoenix
into
are gonna
Colossus. Yeah, the Phoenixes are going to be coming in over here. We're looking at a couple of these SCVs, and yeah, not going to bother with a mule, but hey, 4 SCV kills for completely free, definitely going to be worth it. And I'm curious, is this going to force like more of a Marine-heavy reaction as opposed to Marauders, which the Colossus will just be able to do better against?
Not really. There's really no need to change up the composition that much. Phoenix are very weak when it comes to fighting Marines. I don't think we're going to see a massive change in the composition here from TtSEED.
That's totally
And
fair
missile
to say.
turrets, I want to point out, missile turrets are much more effective at dealing with Phoenix than spore crawlers are.
Missile turrets attack pretty gosh darn fast, man, and they're pretty annoying.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it looks like we're getting a huge amount of powering out of Gravity's Rake right now. I mean, he's adding on 5 gateways, he's finishing up his robotics bay, and I think he's going to be able to power really, really heavily. Do you think that he's probably going to be maybe looking to take a 3rd expansion right now, or is he just going to maybe go for some kind of big 2-base push?
Well, it's about that time. Now, the fact that he just put down 4 gateways says to me he's probably thinking of attacking soon, or at least getting up a significant army before he goes for his 3rd. But you never know. I mean, one of the great things about these North American matches is they don't always follow what you would expect, like in the Korean scene.
That is so true. But one thing that would be really, really scary if he does go for that 2-base push is, I mean, he still has managed to keep alive a majority of those Phoenix. So even with the small number of medevacs that are going to be out for intense, I mean, those medevacs can be so easily picked off by these Phoenix. This is one of the beauties of this kind of build.
Indeed. A key thing, though, is if the Phoenix are not successful in picking off important units like medevacs or Vikings, his actual army is pitiful if you think about the amount of resources he's put into the Phoenixes. So he has to be effective with the Phoenixes.
Oh, but he looks like he actually just saw that the army is moving out. Let's see if he can actually get any pickoffs right now. He's going after one of those medevacs. That's actually going to be a really nice pickoff. And that basically leaves one medevac left, and we have some SCVs transferring over to the 3rd. Not for an SCV pull.
No.
Right,
yeah, the window's gonna close pretty soon for that.
Yeah, the Sentry actually ends up dying without throwing up a Guardian Shield or any Force Fields right now. This is a scary situation, but actually with Colossus, dear lord, those Colossus ripping apart the Marines and Marauders. Even though, yeah, there's a couple of them left. Oh man, even the medevac should theoretically go down if he chases after it with his Phoenix.
Yeah, very interesting. And we're not seeing any Viking production whatsoever from Intense. Okay, he is putting down a 2nd starport. Okay, and he just started Vikings. A little late to be starting those.
But I mean, at the same time, he is losing a lot of his medevacs. So when does he produce Vikings, and when do you produce medevacs if you're literally down to 1 medevac right now? Or actually, I guess
either you do the S. Either what you do is you do the preemptive SCV pull and you just wipe out Protoss, or you hucker down a little bit and get your economy going, get your production going, and get out the right composition to deal with what he's building, which is Colossi.
Oh god, but hold that thought. We have a big drop going over into the main base. 4 medevacs loaded up, and with all of them unloaded, it's going to be difficult even for the Phoenix to actually be able to do a whole lot over here. The Nexus is getting focus fired down. The Phoenixes are coming in from the back. That's going to stop these units from actually being able to load back in and escape.
Yeah, he's going to lose every medevac.
Oh man. I mean, was that worth it? He's going to be losing so many units, but...
Unfortunately, no. Delaying that Nexus or taking out that Nexus when it's almost mined out already was not worth losing your whole army, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I am a little bit worried right now for Esports' Seed, or sorry, TtSEED's Intense, as he's going to be very vulnerable to a counterattack now. I mean, he doesn't really have that big of an army to actually defend now.
Yeah, and critically, these Phoenix are still alive.
Oh man,
so there's absolutely no air support here at all, and this every single Marauder here is just going to die.
Oh god, he just immediately kills off every single Marine, and then the Phoenixes are completely uncontested, and there is absolutely no way they can defend this third expansion. But amazingly enough, Rake not actually going after that third just quite yet. He's taking a very safe path to it, I should say.
Yeah, but really, he's got nothing to fear at this point. There's only one turret there to deal with the Phoenix, and this many Colossi. Wow.
Oh man, a lot of SCVs going down over there. Even the Phoenix going to be able to harass that command center. Probably not going to bother going after it, as Phoenixes will take a while to kill off the command center. But hey, denying the mining over the third expansion while his main is actually reestablished to get up that extra gas geysers. I think that right now, Team Gravity's Rake looking to be in a great position to maybe take game number 2.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we're about to have the TtSEED's fight of his life.
Yeah, SCVs are pulled, but they're actually going to be funneled in through the choke of the ramp right now. And in the meanwhile, the Phoenix is doing a great job tanking the damage and killing off those Vikings right now. The Hellbat's going to be mixed in, and the Zealots have all been cleaned up. And this actually may be enough for Intense to at least take out some of the key critical units like those Colossus, but no. One of them does still survive, and those Phoenix is just doing such a great job of the list.
Indeed. Very nice. I think I would have liked to seen Intense when he saw the Phoenix count getting high, just kind of bunker down a little bit, because like I said before, missile turrets are very effective against Phoenix. And when an army has that many Phoenix in it, it is not as strong aggressively in the other person's base. Like, it's very good out in the middle of the map where he can pick things up and he could spend a lot of time just sitting still, but he's not very good at attacking into a base. So he probably would have been better off getting a little more units to deal with everything instead of pushing out like he did. And the drop obviously was a catastrophic mistake.
Yeah, I mean, he tried to go for the drop, and I like the way that he set up the drop, because normally, like, if he just kind of just went for those 4 medevacs and just tried to drop the main, there was a chance that he would have done absolutely no damage, because there were so many Phoenixes. If he had been caught a little bit out of position, he would have been in a lot of trouble. But instead, he actually comes in with a little bit of aggression on the left-hand side of the map. I think he had like 1 medevac loaded up, goes for aggression on the third base, pulls the Phoenixes out of position, because those are the fastest units. Those are the units that you're going to react with to a drop. And then he goes to the drop over into the main base. But even still, like, as you said, like, he didn't do enough damage. Maybe if he'd been able to snipe off, like, the robotics bay and cut Colossus production, do you think that would have been worth it?
No, I don't think so. I think it was the wrong move to take his entire flying army and bring it over there when there were that many Phoenix. Because he has to load up eventually. Like, he knows that drop wasn't strong enough to deal with the whole army, so he has to load up. And obviously the moment he loads up, he has no way to defend them backs. They're all going to get picked off.
Yeah.
So it's one of those situations where it feels like, oh crap, I'm behind, I need to do something. That wasn't it, unfortunately.
So, I mean, we'll have to see some changes in Intense's play if he wants to be able to come back right now. He's down 2-0 versus Team Gravity's Rake, and Rake is definitely raking in the wins right now. Well, actually, it looks like we know what the map is. The map is going to be Frost, and do you agree with this decision?
Well, Frost gives him another opportunity to macro up a little bit before attacking. But we could see virtually the same thing happen over again. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Rake went with the same build because it was so effective last time.
Yeah, I mean, especially keeping that medevac count low and not allowing to really produce a massive number of Vikings. Of course, Phoenixes just were so useful in a variety of situations. I think it's exactly as you mentioned before. It's kind of like that new age build that's sort of catching on all really heavily with a lot of Protosses right now. But with that being said, what would you like to see out of maybe Rake? Would maybe he should mix in a super heavily aggressive build, or you think say just stick with what works, go for the 3-0?
I've been accused of on-air masturbation by Puzzlement.
I mean, this play is pretty beautiful, man. I've been tempted. I've been tempted.
Trust me, you guys would know.
But what would you what would you like to see out of Rake? Do you think that he should toss in just something totally out of the ordinary, totally different, or is this the game just to play standard again?
I think he dismantled Intense so readily with that build. He should probably do the same build again.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll wait and see what exactly is going to be the response from Intense. What is he going to change up in this game? And that's really going to determine whether or not he can come back into the series. We're going to be jumping into the next game on Frost. It's going to be a Protoss versus Terran. Team Gravity leading 2-0. Let's go ahead and jump in and introduce those players as we spawn up here in the top right-hand corner of Frost. We have the blue Protoss player representing Team Gravity, currently up 2-0. It is Rake.
And in the bottom right, currently feeling the heat of a lawnmower, it is representing TtSEED, Intense.
And I mean, you were saying, hey, like Frost, you kind of like that decision just because it'll give him a chance to again try and macro up a little bit. What exactly does the Terran player have to do differently in this game if he wants to actually succeed?
Well, I mean, that's going to depend on the decision the Protoss makes. Like I said before, if the Protoss is going to make a bunch of Phoenix like that, he's not obligated to fight the Protoss. You know, Protoss is going to enjoy those middle of the map engagements where he can sit still with his Phoenix for a while, but he can't attack into a fortified position. So if he just takes advantage of that and, you know, spreads out a little bit, gets a little more space, a little more economy, and takes advantage of, hey, when I have a 200 supply army versus your 200 supply army, those Phoenixes are going to drop quickly. And then all of a sudden, a lot of your supply disappears, and I'm just going to be able to destroy you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be a kind of weird situation where maybe the best decision is for Intense to kind of go a little bit more against his nature of gotta, you know, go for those drops, gotta try and do some damage constantly, where he can instead just sit back and macro up. And looks like he's actually going to be taking that a little bit more to heart as he goes for that command center first yet again. And we'll have to wait and see how exactly does Rake respond.
Well, we have the same gateway expand as we had before.
Yeah, and kind of interesting, he's actually delaying his scouting off for quite a bit of time, especially for a 4-player map. What do you think about that? It's all good.
I don't think it really matters. There's not much Protoss can do early on, unless he luckily, you know, gets proxy gates in there or something, which, given Rake's playstyle, he's not going to really expect that. So I think he's fine deferring a scout like he did.
That's fair. And yeah, he's just going to be planting down that Nexus as well. So this is looking to be a pretty standard looking game, and both these players are going to be macroing up. But, I mean, you kind of mentioned, like, hey, if the Terran player wants to be able to deal with those Phoenixes, then they just play a little bit more defensive. Like, they don't have to go and engage the Protoss army, is how you put it, right? So, would you like to see maybe like any kind of particular tech choice? Because that's another big concern, is that the Phoenixes will constantly be trying to harass you, and not just your SCV line, but also even trying to pick off stray medevacs and everything. So how do you balance the production of medevacs versus Vikings for the eventual Colossus transition?
Well, you still have to have the same number of Vikings as you normally would, which is 2 to 3 Vikings per Colossi. The difference is remember, when you get up to a larger army size, your Marines become lethal against the Phoenix. So the moment the Phoenix pop in, you can just pick them off. Whereas when you have a small army spell, you see the same thing in PvZ, where a few Hydras is terrible against Phoenix, but a lot of Hydras is basically the counter to Phoenix. And it's the same thing with Marines. Once your army gets large enough, you can really take advantage of the fact that he does not have as much army supply in damaging powerful units. And that's the key thing to remember with the Phoenix. When you try and fight a Phoenix the way Phoenix wants to fight, i.e. you want to be mobile and all over the map, the Phoenix are just going to walk all over you. Don't give him that.
It's a really great point, and we'll have to see again, is Intense going to actually do that? Because right now, it looks like he's kind of doing a very similar build to last time. He's started off with those 2 barracks. He obviously went to the command center first. He's adding on that 3rd barracks. And
he's getting his Robo Bay up at 6 minutes, which is very fast. So I think we're going to see extremely fast Colossi here.
Oh, this is a really interesting switch up, and
yeah,
I mean, what exactly is Intense going to have to look for if he's going to scout that, other than just straight up seeing the robotics bay, maybe?
Yeah, he needs to see that as soon as possible, and I gotta commend Rake here because he's putting the Robo Bay in a different location than the facility, so one scan is not going to catch it.
And it's going to be pretty interesting to see. Is this likely just going to be some big, 2-base Colossus timing push with 2 or 3 Colossus and a handful of gateway units?
It's a definite possibility, yes.
All right.
Yeah, this is extremely fast. The first Colossi being built at 7 minutes. Thermal Lance already being upgraded.
Oh man, and there's not going to be a Marauder out on the map for quite a bit of time as he's just continuing that Marine production. He's actually moving out with a handful of Marines, and hey, I mean, he might actually be able to force that first Colossus out on the fence, and that could be one way to scout it.
Because where's the Mothership core at? The Mothership... Uh-oh.
It's between the main and the natural, so it should be able to plant down a photon overcharge.
Yeah, so it should be able to get a photon overcharge, which is going to scare off those Marines. It's only going to take a few gateway units. Yeah, you see how he's pulling the Colossi back so it's not visible? He's trying to hide it.
Ooh, that's a really cool move. And that Marine is kind of trying to move in over there. The photon overcharge does go down, and I mean, it's taking out a lot of those Marines and forces out a force field, amazingly enough. But yeah, nothing actually scattered over there for Intense. But is the fact that there were only really 2 stalkers and a sentry some sort of giveaway that, hey, my opponent's hiding something?
Definitely a giveaway. However, what are you going to do about it at this point? It's 9 minutes into the game. Your production isn't even really up there yet. His starport is just going down now. Or halfway finished. He doesn't even have the potential to make Vikings yet. And in the same time, we're going to have 3 Colossi within the next 20 seconds.
Oh god, that's going to be a scary thought. A proxy pylon also going down over just to the bottom middle side of the map right now. And that is definitely indicating that we're going to be seeing some heavy aggression right now. Shadow, the question is going to be, what is Intense going to be able to do about it? I mean, half of his Marines are over by that Zelmargo watchtower, but oh god, if the entire army of Rake just walks in the shortest possible path to his opponent's base, all those Marines are going to be really out of position to actually defend.
Indeed they are. And the attack has basically begun.
Yeah, but actually here's a counterpoint. If he somehow pulls back those Marines just in time and holds on long enough, he could actually set up for like this most sick, unintentional flank possible.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think this engagement's about to start in the next 10 to 15 seconds, and those Marines are still up there on near the top of the map.
Oh man, a couple of these SCVs have finally seen what's going on. He's still not pulling back those Marines, amazingly enough though, and oh, this is going to be so difficult. The first bunker is getting target fired down, and there's not going to be any repair on it. It's just going to fall.
Yeah. And the Marines are rushing back, but they're going to get there way too late.
Oh, beautiful force fields, and a nice pickup actually on the command center, going to allow his Marines and Marauders to actually get into the fight, but now we end up seeing the flank coming in. It's a little bit late as those Colossus have already ripped apart all the Marines and Marauders at the front line. The Vikings also falling drastically and rapidly. GG gets called, and Gravity's Rake takes the 3-0.